ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for tuning in to Petty Time with your man, the one and only Petty Murphy, Solon's #1 edutainer at your #1 source for edutainment, Akata News Network. Today we will be checking in with our co-host, the one and only Napocrates, as he drops a little bit of science of how we willfully ignore the grooming size present in society and all of our media and entertainment. And with that, we'll get out to the plantation studio with some petty shit. Yeah, what's cracking? So you already know what it is. It ain't nothing new under the sun. Before we start, I just want to give a disclaimer. Today's subject may be a little touchy for some people, but I want to use it as a segue to steer into another topic so we can get to these videos, and then we're gonna spin the block and we're gonna rap about it.
Deep in the holy shrine, make it so!
Not cool, that got in my eye.
I can't say this spelled right with my tongue all swollen. Oh, good thing I have an anti-venom pill in my pants. No, I can't reach it. Can you get it for me, little guy, please?
No problem. Whoa! You got like treasure pants! Huh? What's this weird moppy thing?
It's for killing flies.
What? What about this shiny thing?
That's a fire-tip spear.
Fire-tipped spear, huh?
Hey, don't touch that switch!
You mean this switch?
Huh? Huh?
Raja, are you causing trouble again?
Tell you, really? But it's time to start. I know, but this can't wait any longer. If I'm going to lead the herd, I want to do it as myself. After all, you always say to lead with your heart, right? Well, my heart says that the way I feel most myself is to go by the name Fred. That's because I'm non-binary, and Fred's the name that fits me best. And I also use they and them, because calling me a she or a he doesn't feel right to me. Oh, I didn't know that. No wonder you've been struck.
It's easier to groom a child because an adult always has a position of power over a child. It's really hard to just look at somebody and say, that person's a predator. What you have to do is look at the behaviors and listen to the things that they say.
We met before. It's hard to forget those eyes. Look at those eyes. Look at them.
Can I leave just alone? Very good.
Very clear warning signs are adults who ignore children's boundaries when it comes to touching, kissing, holding, or tickling. They will engage in those behaviors with the child and continue them despite the fact that a child squirms away or pulls away or voices any sort of discomfort verbally or non-verbally. Most adults take those cues and realize, oh, they don't want to be hugged or tickled right now, and that's fine. Sex offenders and predators just plow right through it. Another is sexualizing a child by talking about dating or their bodies in a way that would not be appropriate for their age.
How old are you, 17? Oh, 6. You're turning 11. You're ready. Just remember, no dates to your 30s. No dates to your 30 years old.
In my field, we often say that child sex predators don't just groom children, they groom families and communities. Seeing these behaviors in an adult doesn't mean that adult is a predator or would ever harm a child. But what it does do is it sets that child up to grow up in a world where they view these violations of personal space as normal, and that's unacceptable. Everyone, regardless of their gender expression or age, deserves to walk through this world with their physical boundaries intact and not living in fear that they'll be violated. Offenders have depended on not only the silence of their victims, but our silence. If we allow children the permission to say no or speak up for them when they can't, we're going to go a long way in preventing so much.
Hi kids! Hi kids! Hey kids! So you were told repeatedly, over years, that you're trash, that you're worthless. I am so sorry that you grew up in a household that was chaotic. You don't deserve to feel bad all the time. Here are 3 ways to know when your mental health is sliding. Here are 3 reasons that you are a good person. Here are 3 ways that you can enjoy your childhood trauma. I want to talk to the kids. Your parents made mistakes. You can't blame the parents. Of course they can. I'm just concerned about the children. Should I go no contact with my mom? I will tell you about going no contact. Don't worry about hurting a parent's feelings. If you had toxic parents will always make it about them. Your parents rushed you. Your parents screwed up. Families like to keep the roles the same. Here's your way out. If you do not have a family that loves you, I'm going to be your family. You are safe. I really do love you. I'm not playing a character here. I see the real you. I know you. People always say, Jeffrey, it feels like you're talking right to me. And that's because I am. I hope you got the message by now that you are worth something. I know that you're worth something. I just think about you a lot. You can ask me anything. That's why I made a Patreon, so that we could talk about it, so that we could connect in a way that has more privacy. And if you want to hear from me on a personal level, just let me know. And I didn't know these private videos would be some of the most fulfilling work that I do. There's no such thing as a boy or a girl. It's good for children to see LGBTQ lives and LGBTQ people. Biological sex is fake. Here are 3 reasons why sex is difficult for you. Here are 3 reasons why sex is difficult. And you can request anything you want from me. People want what I have. It's okay to feel all of your complicated feelings. There's a causation between false stories in the media about us and I keep wondering, who is the real danger to children?
And that's one of the things that I think a lot of times boys need is not just exposure to one guy.
Mm-hmm. One dad.
One dad. No matter how good the dad
is. He can't be everything.
He can't be everything. And that boy may need somebody to give the boy some perspective on the dad.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
One of the most valuable things I learned as a guy was I had a gay professor in college at a time when openly gay folks still weren't out of line, who became one of my favorite professors and was a great guy and would call me out when I started saying stuff that was ignorant. You need that to show empathy and kindness. And by the way, you need that person in your friend group so that if you then have a boy who's gay or non-binary or what have you, they have somebody that they can go, okay, I'm not alone in this.
Yeah.
Right? So
all right, thank you. So first off, and I'm going to be as brief as possible because, this is a very touchy subject. But I think a lot of us in society as a whole don't really pay attention. Either we're not paying attention because we're preoccupied with life and, adults have us adulting, or being an adult, you know what I mean? Or it's just willful ignorance and people don't care. Or people are, because, consensus basically rules society and deems where you fit in society, and no one wants to be a pariah or go against the grain. So because there's an agenda being pushed, Nobody really wants to say anything because they don't want to be outcast. But has anyone noticed that there seems to be, how do I put this? A heavy influence in entertainment these days. Cartoons, movies, with a lot of sexual innuendos geared towards young ones. And maybe I'm just getting older, maybe I'm reaching, but it seems like the further we get along, the more outrageous and the more they push the boundaries, almost like if they're saying is how far they can go advertising or going out of the way to indoctrinate the minds of our kids so that this is normalized and it becomes normal, to put your hands in treasure pants so that you can see the floppy fly swatter or the fire spitting dragon spear, whatever the fuck he called it. But that's a lot of innuendo. And, at those ages, those young tender ages, the mind is not processing and understanding it consciously, but the subconscious is like a hard drive. It remembers everything. Even if you consciously take traumatic experiences and tuck them away and forget about them, it's etched in your brain. And subconsciously, you will never forget. It's etched in stone until you leave up off this rock. So my question is why do we allow this? And it's funny because when you look at certain things like in America, if a religious institution, a church, a mosque, synagogue, if they want to get tax exempt status, right, they have to actually abide by or agree to preach their doctrine a certain way. So there are certain things that they are not allowed to say from that pulpit. And this is the law if they want the tax exempt status from Uncle Sam, right? But I want to ask you something. Have anyone found it odd lately that it seems like in about the last 10 years or so, maybe since Obama was in office, that now the alphabet committee all have flags on every government building? Like you look at City Hall or any government building, basically, in your state, in your town. Like I know if I go to the Bronx courthouse right now, I'm going to see 3 flags. Sometimes 4, but normally you have the United States of America. Then you have the state flag. Sometimes you'll see the POW, MIA, Prisoners of War Missing in Action flag, the black and white flag. But then there's also the Alphabet Committee flag. And if you notice, you also see them on every church that receives tax exempt status from the federal government. So, if you ever have time and you want to actually understand what pronouns are, just look up the genders of the Talmud. And then you'll understand why your Democratic congressmen are drafting up legislation so that we now have to pay the retirement for the IDF as well as medical and vacation. Another topic for another day. Anyways, so that said, this leads me into the power of words. As you know, in the beginning, Genesis, it was God, and God was the Word. Basically, He created everything through word. Now, one of the problems that I personally feel that we face as a society, especially as Americans or Western civilization, is that somewhere around the early 1900s, the Rockefellers took over education, the music, and they took over everything basically, and they started creating international standards. Okay? So if you've ever noticed, you hear people that are multilingual, they always say that English is the hardest language to learn because it has the least amount of words with the most amount of meanings. And compared to all other languages, the verbs and everything are kind of conjugated backwards. So it's almost like we speak backwards or in reverse. Because spelling is spells, and English is a language of witchcraft. But again, another topic for another day. But that said, they also tell you that English is a language that's always evolving. And my personal belief is that they tell you that because, we use our words every day incorrectly. And if you've ever heard of the experiment by Dr. Emoto, it's a Japanese scientist, and did a study that says that water holds memory, but not only that, that water is conscious. So what he did in fact, you know what?
Dr. Masaru Emoto, who did all this work with water, his first experiment was to put a bottle of water, have all of his students send negative energy. I hate you, you're stupid, you're a fool. Took that water, froze it in little petri dishes, bring it out, stick it under a microscope with a camera on top. It forms these big, ugly black blobs. Take the same kind of water, another bottle, send positive energy to the water, freeze it, put it under the petri dish when it's melting, forms beautiful snow crystals. So we know that two things were fascinating. Water has memory, and 85% of your body is made up of water. Your brain is made up of even more water. So when you're saying negative things to yourself, you're affecting yourself in a physiological way.
Dr. Emoto has conducted another interesting experiment. He placed rice into 3 glass beakers and covered it with water. And then every day for a month, he said, "Thank you" to one beaker, "You're an idiot" to the second, and the third one he completely ignored. After 1 month, the rice that had been thanked began to ferment, giving off a strong, pleasant aroma. The rice in the second beaker turned black. And the rice that was ignored began to rot.
All right, so Dr. Emoto, right? So now you know and understand the power that words carry. So if you look up the etymology, which etymology is, the study of the origin and meanings of words. So you always have your root, sometimes a prefix, sometimes a suffix, but sometimes what you think is a suffix can be the root and then add a suffix, but it's normally always a root, prefix, suffix, and you make up your words. So when you break them down to the sum of their parts, then you understand fully what message you're actually trying to convey when you have conversations with other divine, conscious, sovereign beings. So when you look at a word like entertainment and you break it down to the sum of its parts, the prefix enter means to go within. The root tame or to tame means to bind, to wrap and bind. And on this one, the suffix ment means mental. So to enter the mind, to tame it and bind it. That, my friends, is what you call incantations and spells, or indoctrination, mind control, MK Ultra, whatever you want to call it. But when you're seeing the same images over and over and over and over, and the innuendos and everything, it's almost like predictive programming. It just becomes normal to you. That's all. That's all. But see, a lot of people we don't take time to think about these things. And then, we're consuming these things just like food and putting them into our body, and it affects the mind, the body, and the spirit. Not to get too in that mode. But I think these are some of the things that all of us as a society need to be thinking about, because now we're rationalizing, and the progressive liberals are now drafting up legislation where they can put children as young as 12 on beta blockers. Or if someone deems that they're mentally sound enough, in some states, they can even go through certain physical changes, if that makes sense. And one of the scary things about that to me is that, they always talk about how good that is for mental health, but you never hear the stories of the vast amount of people after that and what they go through, and how many of them unalive themselves or detransition because of the more mental anguish that they go through after actually going through the process. And I think these are conversations that need to be had, because it seems like they always want to give you one side of a story when it comes to anything. It's not just that, but it's anything. They always want to give you one side of the story, but not the other half. It's like when you're watching a commercial and it's for medication, right? They tell you all the great shit the medication does. Oh, so you got psoriasis, patches, flaky skin, blah, blah, blah. Take this every 6 months. Come get a shot in the ass. You'll be all good. Just read the fine print. And then right before the commercial closes out for the last 30 seconds, but if you don't know, you have a heart attack, suicide, run your ass, fucking up there, and also the bullshit. And that's basically what's happening in this situation, because we don't pay attention to the fine print. And because we've been indoctrinated to think that, oh, well, language is forever evolving. Just because the language evolves, like you've seen with the Dr. Emoto experiment, just because you use the word a certain way doesn't mean that the energy it carries or the meaning of the actual word changes. And this is why a lot of people have what they would like to call bad luck or cursed lives, because they can't cast spells on themselves all the time and allow people around them to do the same. But I don't want to get too deep into that, but this is just a little something to think about, because pay attention to what's going on. You wonder why when you see all these protests and there's a whole bunch of boomers and their grandchildren. Well, the reason people think it's okay with all the shit going on to attack federal agents and to fight for the rights and due process of illegal aliens, many of which were released from prisons in their own countries, because if you actually go through the footage, and matter of fact, stop.
Of Haitians are going to be sent back home from America. Where are these people going to go? If they are sent back to Haiti, they may land in Haiti, but immediately they can jump on a boat or a plane and end up in the Bahamas and say the words asylum. Yes. Canada is suffering right now. There's YouTube videos on how to destroy a country. And it's about Canada and how they just opened their borders and let people in. It led to their prime minister having to resign. I prefer for our prime minister to resign now before to buy our medicine in our pharmacy. We don't have the money to build proper schools. How are we going to pay the housing, food, medical expenses, and education for all of these people? Our schools are already full to capacity. And to have a law that is
Locals believe some of the migrants are dangerous. Really? Protesters don't want tax dollars spent on humanitarian aid.
Damn, who would have thought of that?
Look how they're treating the Central Americans. Puro Tijuana cabrones. Look. Primero nuestros pobres, no invasión. Tijuana, no, de primero México. First America.
Give us a little subtitle,
Inmigrantes,
Ricky.
no, sí, ilegales, no la invasión. Mexico does this, you hypocrites. That's what pisses me off. Wow. Mexico does this. You want to make, racist, fascist. If you don't support the cause, then you're implicit. Silence is implicit. What about this shit? What about this? No country likes illegal immigration. There's no racism involved. There's no fascism involved, whether we like it or not. And if Trump and if ICE were to pick up, I would be personally affected in a very, 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 very close manner to me. But the law. This president, and by the way, nobody said anything when Barack Obama deported 3 million people. Oh, and I love this. Oh, he did due process. No, he didn't. In 1996, Bill Clinton signed a bill that allowed expedited exportations. He used it, Bush used it, Obama used it, Biden used it, and so did Trump. There's no due process. 75% of the people that Barack Obama deported were deported immediately using the expedited deportation. But it's so crazy that you say these facts to Mexicans, to Hispanics. Oh, no, because now no Mexican used to know what the word due process was, Pat. Now all the Mexicans know due process. They're all lawyers now. They're all lawyers now.
Okay, so they don't even want them back. And that's my point. So when you look at the level of indoctrination, you can understand why so many American patriots and progressive individuals that love everything and everyone, when they're told to, are fighting for the people who are not even welcome back in their home countries because they were thrown out for and when you have your own problems, I don't think trauma bonding or importing anyone else's bullshit is a wise way to go. But on that note, I'm gonna call it for the day, all right? And remember, realize, and transparency forces accountability. Y'all keep your eyes to the stars and keep that head on a swivel, because it's a dirty game. And welcome back to the House Studios, ladies and gentlemen. After that brief expose, I must say it's so diabolical. I have nothing else to do but get high. At this point, fuck the FCC, the contract, and even being on air at this point anymore. At what point did it become okay in our society where we use our entertainment to groom our young ones? And if you know anything about the word entertainment when it comes to word etymology, well, if you know, you know. So I say to you all, what in the K-pop is going on here? Somebody call Teddy pederast and hold the reach around, because this is dirty work, ladies and gentlemen, and outright diabolical. And with that, I'm going to get out of here, because it is the one, the only, Solon's number one edutainer, Petty Murphy, reporting to you live from the back of the classroom here at Foundational Black America's number one source for edutainment. It is Akata News Network. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we'll bid you adieu. Put these motherfuckers in the dirt.